Betty Shelby, the police officer who faced trial after the shooting death of Terrence Crutcher, resigned from the Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department, and then actually ended up getting fired in the next town over, neighboring Rogers County. Now, the sheriff there, Scott Walton, has been a very supportive person towards Shelby, has been a fan of Shelby. And for those of you who are unsure of which police shooting we're talking about, this was the one that took place last year, and it involved Terrence Crutcher, who was seen on surveillance with his hands up prior to Betty Shelby shooting him. Now, we're gonna show you that surveillance right now. It's hard to watch, so I wanna give you that warning. With that said, let's take a look.
He's got his hands up there for her now. Mike, I'm gonna hit the recorder. This guy's still walking and following commands.
Time for taser, I think.
Got a feeling that's about to happen.
That looks like a bad dude too, to be honest with them.
Which way are they facing?
Police 1, they're facing westbound. I think he may have just been tasered.
Shots fired!
All right, so she did face trial for that shooting, and she was acquitted. And so even though she was still employed with the Tulsa Police Department, she felt that she was isolated from other law enforcement there. So she decided to resign. After she resigned, she did get hired by Rogers County.
So the jury acquitted her, but all 12 of them said that she should not be a police officer. Now that's their opinion, and what matters is their acquittal. But one juror was quoted as saying, "Look, I don't know that she's a bad person, but I know she shouldn't be a cop." And the neighboring county, Rogers County, was like, "No, you all saw the evidence against her. Think she shouldn't be a cop. I don't see what the problem is."
Right. And that the sheriff of that county was a former Tulsa police officer who had supported her all the way through.
So she testified that she was scared because Crutcher appeared to be under the influence of drugs, didn't obey her commands.
Oh, good, execute him then.
Yeah,
Right.
And so look, I don't want to go back and adjudicate this case, because we've done it a billion times before. But what I do want to say is, look, this is not a different state. This is literally the neighboring county. And this was a very high profile case. And I think it's important to be a police officer who has some level of trust within the community. And
no, but it depends on which community you're talking about, Anna. So, this Sheriff Scott Walton, maybe he's friends with her, and maybe he thinks I want to support a fellow cop that I used to serve with in Tulsa. But that's being way overly generous to him. And I don't know what his real motivation is. But the message that he's sending is, if you're a black person in my county and you've got your hands up, we'll kill you anyway. Because I just hired the person who killed a black guy who had no weapons on him, had his hands up, and I rewarded her. I gave her a job, I gave her a salary. A jury of her peers says she should never be a cop again. I ignored that. Whether you liked what she did or not, by hiring her, you have sent a message to the community that I'm rewarding what she did.
Yeah, you're cool with it.
Yeah, and it depends on what you mean by community. Because he doesn't view blacks in that area as his community. He views whites as his community. Now you can say, oh, Cenk, you can't read his mind. I can read his actions. His actions. If you cared about African Americans and all of the people that you're serving in your community, would you hire someone who clearly in broad daylight shot someone who had their hands up and who, didn't have a weapon? I mean, again, at a bare minimum, gross negligence. I mean, if she had shot the local mayor or a judge or a local businessman, the guy who runs the used car dealership or whatever, he has his hands up and she just, I don't care, who cares, whatever, boom. Or I'm scared, I don't know, he's a big white guy with a beard, I don't know, boom, shoot him, kill him dead. You think this guy goes, well, hey, good job, way to kill the mayor, right? Okay, hey, I'm gonna hire you. Oh, you used Bob down the street who we go to church with, who's a car dealer guy? Oh, you killed him even though he had his hands up? Great job, I'm gonna hire you. He's not gonna do that. They're certainly sending the message that that if you kill an African American with his hands up, it's not that big a deal.
Right. Look, I also want to say though that I don't think that white members of the community are safe from this type of excessive force either. And look, I don't know what this particular sheriff is thinking or what's going through his mind, but it isn't just black members of the communities that have been, in my opinion, unjustly shot and killed. There have been a number of white people, even though it disproportionately does impact the black community.
The epidemic does not go necessarily in the same direction, though.
You're right, yeah, and so I want to be clear about that. Disproportionately, yes, it impacts the black community. However, there have been cases of unarmed white people who have been shot and killed by cops as well, and the cops still get the support from their peers. They still make excuses for them. And so no one, regardless of what your race is, regardless of what your background is necessarily safe from this happening to them. And I want to get that through people's minds.
Yeah, I hear you. It way disproportionately hits African Americans, but there's a lady in the pajamas. There's dozens, hundreds of cases of it happening to white people too. So if you're in Rogers County and she's a cop there now, if you got your hands up, doesn't matter if you're listening to a cop's. Now, to be fair, he was not listening perfectly to her orders, right? So if you don't listen exactly to every word they say, that apparently could be cause for execution, and the sheriff thinks that's a good job, and so wants to reward that.
Even the guys in the copter who didn't know anything were like, he looks like a bad dude. Right.
But that's why it is racial.
Yeah, it is. That's what I'm saying.
Of course. Come on.
That to me is as telling as the shots being fired, right?
Yeah, but even the guys in the copter who made that racial assumption doesn't mean, by the way, that they're maliciously racist. And people got to understand that there are stereotypes, and they might not realize they have it in the back of their heads, but they just said it. Why does he look like a bad dude? Turns out he wasn't. He was a perfectly innocent civilian who happened to be a large African American guy. Oh, bad guy. But even they were like, time to tase him.
Time to tase this guy. Oh, it looks like they just tased him, right? No question.
They're like, oh, obviously they were not expecting that the guy would get shot.
Right.
But don't worry, the person who did shoot him, now on the force in Rogers County.
Back protecting the good people of Rogers County.
Yeah, so if you're anywhere near Rogers County, watch out. Yeah. And one super last thing. The jury did what they did, and she's acquitted. She gets to go back into regular life. She could go be a furniture salesman. She could work at McDonald's. She could be an executive. She could work for a pharmaceutical company. But she shouldn't be a cop. We're not saying that her life should end. We're saying she's not even going to jail.
What was your old mantra? The bounds of reason?
Bounds of reason, exactly. All we're saying is that's not the right job for her. That can't be an unreasonable demand. Right. Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.